Hi, it's Wednesday evening, September 20th. As always, the thoughts in this video are just mine, and please listen to the National Hurricane Center, your local officials, and your local weather office for the latest information on Hurricane Maria. Here is the storm currently now past Puerto Rico this evening. You can see that the eye has emerged and begun to clear out a little bit as it has crossed the island. It moved in this morning, early landfall on the southeastern corner of Puerto Rico, and really sad reports likely coming out of the island for the next few days. Devastation appears to have been widespread in many areas, similar to what happened in Dominica, and this is a historic hurricane for Puerto Rico, and unfortunately recovery will likely take a long time and a lot of effort. So our thoughts are with them today as the storm begins to finally pull away, heavy rains continuing over the mountainous terrain, and flash flooding certainly has likely been a problem, and many flash flood warnings and emergencies have been issued by NWS San Juan during this storm. And it's now finally beginning to pull away, so weather will start clearing as it has over the Virgin Islands, though rain bands you can see linger for quite some time behind, and it could be a day or two before things really start to dry out, but the wind at least will be coming down over the next few hours in these areas. You can see that the core has been ripped up quite a bit by the island, and there's not a lot about this that is healthy looking at the moment, but it remains a strong storm. Winds 110 miles per hour, and the recon data show that as the system moved across almost pretty full length of the island here, it took several hours. The pressure is up at about 960 and starting to maybe fall gradually again as the system comes back out over water, but this is more than a 40 millibar rise. It was about 917 at landfall, so this is a substantial weakening, which in the short term is good news for the Dominican Republic, as that's the next area that Maria will pass close to, but there is some time for re-strengthening here. When the inner core takes a hit like this, it usually takes some time to recover. Now, Puerto Rico is not the largest landmass that a hurricane can pass over, and so the core is not as disrupted as it would have been if it had passed over, say, Hispaniola or Cuba instead. So it won't take as long, probably, to start recovering as other storms passing over larger land masses, but it will take probably, about half a day if I had to guess, but it's a little uncertain here. The core, some of it has survived, and it may not be long before we start seeing some re-intensification, but it would take a lot to get it back to its former strength, and we'll see how strong it gets, but a close pass is coming regardless here for the Dominican Republic, and the wind field again is larger now than it was prior to the storm moving into the Caribbean. So we are going to see the chance for hurricane force winds across the DR coast on the northern side, and hurricane warnings are up. And again, heavy rain, the potential for life-threatening flooding is always possible in Hispaniola given the mountainous terrain, even well away from the center of any hurricane passing nearby. You can see that outflow is expanding quite well to the north and west, indicating that shear remains low here. There's a big ridge around the storm at the moment, and there's an upper low here, but this is currently not close enough to shear the storm. So conditions are favorable now that the eye is back over water for some re-intensification over the next day or two. By the time we get out to Friday and into Saturday, if we have the hurricane here east of the Turks and Caicos somewhere, we start to see this really broad trough show up in the upper level flow here. You can see the outflow from the storm still curling clockwise to the eastern side, but we have this trough over the Gulf, and this west-southwest flow crossing the Florida Peninsula will likely start impinging upon the hurricane and increasing the wind shear, and this will start pushing most of the thunderstorms off onto the eastern side, and you'll start to see a more lopsided system most likely as we head into the weekend, and this would likely prevent strengthening to Maria's former peak as a Category 5. That seems unlikely to be regained at this point, but you never know. We've had surprises this year, that's for sure. But the current thinking is that this will weaken some as it starts coming north, given that the shear will be increasing, and that seems likely right now. This is the Hurricane Center forecast showing re-intensification during the next couple of days, like we talked about, and moving up again just north of the Dominican Republic coast, just east of the Turks and Caicos, but hurricane warnings are up for both areas, and we actually have hurricane warnings as far west as Crooked Island in the southeastern Bahamas, given that the wind field is larger now, and any deviation to the left of this track could bring hurricane force winds into more of these islands. And so that is a concern going forward. Currently expected to pass just to the east, but be prepared for the potential of a direct hit here in the Turks and Caicos. and southeastern Bahamas in case the track shifts just a little bit toward the west. You can see that the track continues to curve toward the north as we get farther out in time, and as we clear the weekend and get into early next week, by Monday you can see the system is expected to be west of Bermuda and well east of the U.S. mainland eastern seaboard at this time. It's still a little uncertain what's going to happen in this area here as we continue to have a complicated steering pattern with Jose lingering to the north. This is the GFS 500 millibar forecast for early Sunday morning, showing the features at play. We have Hurricane Maria would be here, and we have Jose, what's left of it here, a big ridge over the Great Lakes, so big H here, and we have an upper level low over the Gulf of Mexico, and these factors are all competing to steer Maria. At this point in time, the steering flow is all out of the south-southwest, and so the hurricane is going to be moving this way. The question is whether Jose here allows this alleyway to the northeast to remain open such that the hurricane just rides this right out to sea harmlessly, or if this ridge is able to build in and catch the storm and push it a little closer to the U.S. coastline instead. It's a little uncertain. If the storm is just a little bit farther west here instead of over here, it might be more likely to be pinwheeled around this low and forced a little more toward the northwest and toward the United States mainland. And if Jose is weaker, that could also occur where this ridge builds in stronger and also forces the storm closer to the mainland. These are solutions that are still on the table, but currently less likely than a trajectory that finds its way out into the open ocean. How close this track is, I'm not entirely sure. It seems most likely at this point, though, that a track out to sea occurs somehow, but that doesn't mean the storm couldn't get close enough to bring hazardous weather potentially to portions of the Outer Banks of North Carolina at some point. Still hard to tell, and can't rule out direct impacts on the mainland U.S. entirely. For now, just watching and waiting, but again, make sure you have a hurricane plan if you live on the eastern seaboard, just in case. If it's not Maria, we still have a lot of hurricane season left to go, so you want to be prepared in case something does get close, even if it's not Maria here. So we'll continue to track Maria, and our thoughts are with Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Dominica, Guadeloupe, Martinique, and all the other places that have been directly impacted by Maria and Irma, still recovering from all of these storms that we've had this year. That's it for tonight. Thanks for watching.